So today I thought I would talk about a movie that I just rewatched recently, uh, Alien Resurrection. Now, this movie came out in 1997 and was written by Joss Whedon, the guy who did the Avengers, Serenity, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's also the guy that did the other cut of Justice League, which is infamous. Anyway, I rewatched the movie, and my honest opinion is I really quite enjoyed it. This movie was directed by a French director named Jean Pierre Genet. He was known for arty films like Amelie and City of Lost Children. So he's got a an interesting filmography. Anyway, I rewatched the movie and I got some enjoyment out of it. The acting from Sigourney Weaver was interesting. Winona Ryder, Ron Perlman especially, he was a lot of fun. And I thought I would discuss things I enjoyed about the movie and things that I think worked and didn't work. And I thought I would give my reasons as to why I enjoy the movie. Um, First thing is that I definitely prefer this movie over Alien 3. Okay. Alien Resurrection to me has action, it has science fiction elements that I appreciate. The acting is fun, the action is amazing. And, other than the final alien design in the movie, I really enjoy the look of the creatures, especially the classic xenomorph look. Nobody gives the company who made the creatures, uh, Amalgamated Dynamics, enough credit. I always thought the design of the creatures had this very slimy and uh, familiar presence. Uh, and I actually really like the look. The fin on the tail, the slanted chins, the brown hue to the skin. It gave it a very different look than the other aliens in the movies, not including the dog alien. Uh, but my point is the suits actually did look pretty good, okay, and I don't understand why people severely criticize the designs. I mean, I understand the final design of the movie, which I'll get to soon enough. However, I just really, I think the look of the film is particularly interesting and particularly good. The set design, for example, that was amazing. Yes, it's quite big and drawn out. However, I think it's really intricately designed. It looks like a working environment. It looks like a place where scientists and military people would work. Um, Although I do think the rustic look of the ship is probably the one thing that doesn't make sense, which I would admit is not the best. But it's still a good-looking design for the ship. Uh, this is a '90s movie through and through, so it does have that excuse. With the very eye-catching visuals, the in-your-face acting, and the very interesting and cool music that was in the movie. It's very '90s, and as someone who didn't grow up in the '90s, who's a 2000s person through and through, I can appreciate that. I'm willing to look at movies in their time. Um, the music was made by John Frizzle. He's not a very memorable composer, but I will say his music in the movie was definitely something I remember. I always tend to know the theme whenever I hear it, and I think it really suits the tone of the film. The tone that it's very science fictiony. You're dealing with clones, you're dealing with those out there grotesque features, and it was very um, it was very, I would say, proper for the film. it suited the film. But I also felt the movie was was shot interestingly, or particularly well. Those in your face shots, those dramatic close ups, those zoom ins. I don't know. I don't remember if there were any Dutch angles in the film. There may have been a couple, but I thought the movie was shot very well. I think it worked. But it doesn't fall in line with the other movies in the series, which I will admit is something that just didn't work for the film. The other films were particularly serious. This movie doesn't take itself seriously, which is definitely a running theme throughout the film. Because you got moments in the film where characters act illogically, like bouncing bullets off the wall, grenades going off that go off more than they should. I remember a guy in the film shot 2 grenades at a bunch of eggs, and like 4 or 5 explosions went off. That was illogical, unless you count it as like the same shot done over and over again. Which brings me to the weaknesses of the film. There are quite a few, but I'm going to start with the smaller ones first. One of them being the logic of the film. Okay, there is a scene in the movie where the characters go for a swim, underwater, and it's a really cool scene. It's probably the best scene in the movie, where they're underwater and you got the aliens chasing them. It's all in camera. Most of the shots in the film involved CGI aliens, and there were only a couple shots where the practical suit was involved. Anyway, it was definitely the best scene in the film. However, when you think about the logic of it all, it does fall apart. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched the film, but one of the characters is secretly a robot, or an android as they say in the film. And she's swimming in there with them, and they're all putting their lives on the line to get to one part of the room, when she could have just done it all on her own, and she could have done all the necessities. She could have turned on the lift, she could have done all that by herself, and nobody had to die in that scene. It gets worse because one of the characters, he gets paralyzed by one of the aliens, and he, instead of finding a way to cling to something, or I don't know, not dying, he falls into the water basically. And what I hate is that the characters don't they don't go after him. That was selfish. But where the logic just falls apart is when the character Cole, she opens the door. Okay, she's come out of the water. She was shot earlier, alright? But she comes out, she reveals she's a robot, and everybody's like, oh, she's a robot. But nobody questions the fact that she could have, activated the elevator beforehand, and nobody had to die. Okay, that's a fairly major criticism, but still, it's an enjoyable scene either way. It's not something that I hate. I enjoyed the scene. I love the animation, the practicals. I think it's all quite cool. However, the movie falls apart for me in the third act because they introduce this ugly-looking alien titled the Newborn. That thing is grotesque and ugly, and I think if they'd written a better third act, had something else, I think the movie could have done better. Because the third act starts where they end up on the ship called the Betty, their little craft that they come onto the ship. And this is where the pirates, who are the main characters of the film, that's where they end up. Anyway, the scene, it goes into absurdity because someone chest bursts in grotesque fashion, and he ends up like with superpowers. as he's chest bursting, that was absurd. But you know, it's livable if you know if you understand what the movie is. But you know, the third act with that newborn was just sad and gross and disturbing to me. Didn't work for me. A better idea would have been to go with like an upgraded alien that the scientists made in some lab or something, or I don't know, just the Queen by herself, you know, or I don't know, just another fight with the normal xenomorphs. Anything else would have been better than what they went with. No, instead they went with this ugly looking thing that, you know, that we're supposed to feel for. It was very, it just didn't, it really wasn't good in the film. Let's talk about the character of Ripley, who, spoilers, died in Alien 3. I thought the character was done in a very unique way. You know, she was this new person, basically. You know, she was this clone that was made in this ship, and you know, she didn't know her loyalties between the xenomorphs and the humans, but you know, she just randomly chooses the humans. I'm okay with that. I found her performance to be enjoyable. Definitely not as good as the other three, I will admit that, but you know, it still wasn't a weak performance. You know, when Sigourney Weaver was in the film, she pretty much all the scenes with her would likely be the best part of the film. But you know, bringing her back was a welcome addition. It really made the movie even more memorable for me, because you know, they literally cloned her, as ridiculous as they got. Which brings me to my point. You know, the whole plot of the film is basically cloning this person to get the alien out. They don't even explain what happened to the derelict or the spaceship that we found in the first movie. No, they just clone the aliens, and it's a ridiculous plot. My gripes aside, I enjoy the movie every time I watch it. You know, I find the acting to be fun. I find the action to be fun. The 90s aesthetic is interesting. There's this guy in a wheelchair that is kind of funny. And you know, after watching Alien 3, I like to watch something that's a little bit more fun and not as depressing. So I would still recommend the film, and you know, I'm one of those people who likes the film. I'm a fan, but I will admit it's probably one of the weaker films in the franchise, even if I enjoy it. That being said, I would much rather watch this than like AVPR, Alien vs Predator Requiem. Don't know about Alien vs Predator 1. I actually enjoy that one equally as much as this one, but it's definitely better than AVPR. And although Ridley Scott's prequels are good, I still would watch this over them, because the prequels went a little bit out there. Still, you know, for anybody who wants to watch Alien Resurrection, I would recommend it. Just go in with the hindsight of knowing that it is absurd. It doesn't take itself seriously enough, and you know, it does sort of betray what came before. But I enjoy it as a fitting little climax to the original Alien quadrilogy, or heck, the entire Alien and Predator franchise as a whole, because I see the franchise as one big timeline. Anyway, with that being said, this is my first recording, trying something new for a change, and you know, just thought I'd bring out my thoughts for this film, because it's one that I tend to think about every now and then, just for enjoyment and rewatchability. This Alien and Predator franchise is something very dear to me, and you know, I've been a fan since 2010, I think. You know, I've been a fan since that time, and you know, I've been a fan ever since. You know, and you know, I'm still happy about it. So you know, I'm gonna bring this recording to an end. and thank you for listening. Bye.